I'm in the studio with, well, nobody. We've got a dilemma, but we'll win our dilemma. One of the hardest things about game development is that you actually do have to make a game. It's easy enough to plan a game or to even think longingly about making a game, but as it turns out, it's a totally different ballgame to actually put it into creation. Now, I'll be the first to admit, Squid Chess has had a long and tumultuous history. From its rough beginnings as a method to escape enslavement from the now endangered Japanese lichens of 1802, to its aggravating role in most of the civil wars around the world from the years of 1850 till 1970, Squid Chess has always been on the side of history that aligns the most with its own secretive and oftentimes contradictory goals. Now, unfortunately, when you think about it, it is kind of a shame that it would fall to me to make it into a video game. I'm not the best game developer, and I'm certainly not an expert in, well, anything. But if there's one thing I do know, it is persistence. Humans are endurance hunters. Don't chase after your dreams. Follow them at a sustainable pace until they get tired and lay down. That's what I've always said. Anyway, the game is fucked. There needs to be some kind of progression. There is the skeleton of progress, but it's not really there yet. I've been sort of subliminally planning it without any mindful attention to kind of go like this. You unlock upgrades with resources, and you unlock worlds with ELO. These are just two sides of the same coin. They both come down to the exact same grinding experience. And that's not that good. I mean, I do want the worlds to be replayable. I would like it to be relatively easy to drop into each world and build up to a factory of some kind which gets you the resources. You only get ELO from actually playing the worlds in the first place, so it's kind of like an idle game, but also a little bit not. It's kind of walking that strange line that I wanted to be straddling with Ultra Fun. Now, the original idea was to make Squid Chess into kind of a roguelike, so you would run through it, but I'm not so sure. I mean, the sense of identity with the king isn't really there, and I don't know, I just prefer it as some kind of battler. Maybe I would just like to add some parameters to the world generation, so it doesn't feel quite so much like you're just thrown into it all at once. There is a feeling that you go from the main menu straight into the game, and there's not anything to set you up going into it. Maybe it would just be as easy as adding a little blurb or a cutscene before you enter the game, or improving the world visualization on the main menu itself, but as it is, it just feels disjointed. I do think something needs to be in between the buttons and the actual in-game view. In fact, the in-game itself still needs a significant amount of work. I've only really been doing the big picture stuff lately, and I'm happy with it. It's making progress. But the actual in-game hasn't gone through the same level of iteration yet. Well, something I enjoyed making in Land of Artificial Jellies was that really big world map. Maybe it's just an issue with how all these levels are presented. I mean, there's 4 worlds right now, but they're just placed into a boring old list on the main menu. Wouldn't it be better if they were more like distinct locations, all within a common universe? I mean, that doesn't exactly address the issue of the disjoint between the in-game and the out-of-game, but maybe it would be a step in the right direction. One of the things to know about Squid Chess is that it is a quest. Our intrepid adventurer, King Squid, wishes to be reunited with his long-lost love, Queen Squid. It's a simple story, but he must first brave several worlds full of bizarre and foreign creatures. And you know, inspired by this, maybe some aspects of the progression can just be extrapolated. For one thing, there is the progressive unlocking of new worlds. There is also the continuous assembling of a powerful team. As it is, these systems are implemented in an extremely rudimentary way. Well, right now, new worlds are unlocked by me going into the code and changing false into true, and upgrades are unlocked by their dock on the main menu. My instinct is that a lot of problems could be solved if I had a nice large progress bar somewhere that represents the distance to the next unlock. I have been playing a bit of Dead Cells lately, and they have some really nice progress bars that make you want to keep playing more. Of course, Dead Cells is a completely different game. It's a nice, satisfying, fast-paced game that really does keep you engaged. By comparison, Squid Chess is more of a houseplant. And in fact, that could be its own problem. The level of interaction in the actual in-game session is very low. The only thing you can actually do is place the king and maybe drag him around a bit. We need magic spells. We need the player to be able to manually click on the pieces to damage them. Or something like that. I mean, that would solve the issue where you place the king and there's nothing on the board but the king and like one pawn, and then the king will just randomly wander around while the pawn sits there. I'm thinking just a tiny amount of damage that does not penetrate shields. I mean, that's something to experiment with. In fact, really, that also makes me think of the question of operator powers in the first place. I mean, it's one thing to have powerful pieces, but what about your actual agency as a chess player? I mean, why is the agency of the chess player enslaved to the most boring parts of the game? Just moving between matches and placing the king. Sometimes buying pieces, but not always. I mean, that's about it, though. Why is the game even in the shape of a big roguelike world when the game is not even a roguelike? Well, tempted by the design of other idle games, I wonder how a linear sequence of matches would perform. No randomly generated levels, just a nice, solid series. You would still earn resources for the ones that you beat, but each world would just be completely linear. At the end is a boss. Shops would appear if you get lucky, or maybe if you cross a certain threshold of points. I'm not sure. I guess I would need to think about that. This would allow me to concentrate and refine the progression, since there would be more limitations on what is available when encountering each match. Maybe there would still be multiple matches in a world, but you would only be able to move through them one at a time. And you know, it doesn't have to be in a straight line. The levels can be arranged in any layout. And that also scratches the itch for a world map that integrates and provides some sense to the experience. Maybe that's enough to provide a natural progression between the worlds as well. I mean, once you beat the boss of a previous world, you unlock the next. Not overcomplicating things with ELO, just keeping to a perfectly standard unlock 'em up. Now that sounds like something I can get behind. I mean, the ranch is still in the game too, and maybe that'll come in handy later as well. I mean, it could. I suppose now that I've written all this out, and especially now that I've recorded it and that I will soon be editing it into a video, and the fact that I have an abundance of time lately, I've got some obligation to at least try. Thank the Lord for GitHub, because if I mess it up horribly, I can just revert all of my changes. I mean, believe it or not, I've had to do that a few times before. If you're not using Git for your game's version control, I cannot recommend it enough. As you might have noticed by now, the game has had some major breakthrough in the past month. I mean, I swear it'll end up as something. I keep saying that, and it hasn't been anything at this point. But I'd say it's the first time that I've actually had a good sense of hope for it. But anyway, that's about all for this video. As you might be able to tell, there are a lot of moving parts. Nothing comes easily. If I change the layout of the world, and essentially the whole game, I might end up having to change the piece economy. Maybe even the main menu itself. I mean, who knows? We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I think, in a sense, I've adopted the random walk philosophy of game design. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned if you would like to see me keep working on Squid Chess, and please do tell me to work on it, because I swear that's the only thing keeping me motivated. If I didn't have people asking me to do these things, I would just never do them. Anyway, goodbye.